Authors Press.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Richardson, and I'm from Authors Press. Today is August 15th, 2022. Welcome to another fantastic virtual interview where I'm gathered today with Othello Bach, the author of Cry into the Wind, A True Story. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Othello?
Oh, well, let's see about myself. Other than I'm a writer, I like to paint. I'm an artist. And the other thing I do is compose music. And now that I'm old, an old lady, I do all three of those things and don't have to do anything else. And I love it.
That's great. Could you also tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, it's about growing up in two different orphanages and what they were like and hoping to get some attention. I was hoping at the time to get some attention, but I wrote it when I was 24. So when I got out of the orphanage, it just wouldn't get out of my head. And so I decided to write it down before I forgot something, because I really wanted the churches to know what they're supporting. I couldn't believe they knew what they were supporting. So that became my mission for a number of years, even stopping at churches that I knew supported them and saying, you really need to look into it and send somebody there. Anyway, I've found out since that the federal government has done that on one of them twice. They've been looked at for cruelty. But anyway, it's about those years. So at 24, I decided to put it on paper. And I've sent it to a small publisher in California who went out of business shortly thereafter in the big financial crisis of 2008. And he crashed along with a lot of little publishers. But he did publish it, and I was thrilled, and this is the first real attention it's ever gotten.
Okay. So you've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but what inspired the idea for this book?
My life.
Okay. So it's based on your personal experiences.
Personal experience like I said, try to inform the churches that they need to look into what they're sponsoring.
So you said that you wrote this book when you were 24.
Yes.
Is this the only copy of the book? Like the first? Have you rewritten it since then?
No.
No? Okay.
No, and the publisher didn't suggest any changes other than some typos and, commas and whatnot. Just some editing on the punctuation.
Okay. So, you said that you wanted to point out what was going on to the churches. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Do you have an idea why the churches may have turned a blind eye?
Well, I think they put their money in the plate with a good conscience, good people wanting to help, and they get begging, pleading letters, help us. And I'm sure that they do it out of the goodness of their heart. It never occurs to them that maybe that place is not worth supporting, or maybe it needs to be reported, So you asked about the kinds of things that went on?
If you're comfortable talking about that, you can share that, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
No, I'm not uncomfortable.
Okay. I would like to know a little bit more about that then, if you're willing to share.
Both orphanages did the same thing. In others, I was in the first one. It was, and I had two sisters that were there with me. But the first thing they do is separate you, so that you can't be with your sisters anymore, both of them. Well, I'd already lost my mother, and then, of course, been ripped away from my brothers by going to the orphanage. And to not be able to connect with my sisters. For all of us, that was a huge, hard part to get past. And they wouldn't let us stay in the same dormitories because you might plot to run away, and which I did several times and did run away several times. But seeing kids whipped so hard they're unconscious, in one case, one little girl that all of us knew, all the kids knew, there was something, quote, wrong with her because she didn't, when she got upset, she just made a throaty sound of R's, like, like an animal almost. So we knew she wasn't right. And so in the dining room one day in the second orphanage, as we're waiting to eat, we had to stand behind our chairs until we were told to sit down. And then the matrons, which were the women who ran the dormitories, would serve the little kids. And this was a little girl, about 10. And I was in my early teens. And when she didn't like what she had put on her plate, what the matron put on her plate, she started making this growling sound. And the matron starts yelling, "The devil's got her, Satan's got her." And she starts beating on her, and she starts calling for help from other matrons to come help me. The devil's got her. And anyway, they beat her to death right in front of us.
Oh, wow.
She was dragged out by her feet, and a few days later, I ended up having to sing at her funeral. And so I remember it very clearly. I'm not saying somebody's beaten to death every day. I am saying that some of the beatings were so severe, and by men and by women, that sometimes they would end up in bed for 2 weeks. So they were hard places to grow up.
I'm so sorry you had to witness and experience that, but I am really glad that you're telling your story about it and making these kinds of things known.
Yeah, they should be. In fact, I looked up the orphanages just a couple of days ago before I knew we were going to talk about it, and to see if any action had ever been taken. And on the second one, which was the most brutal one, they've had the government out investigating them twice for the cruelty. So, anyway, I'm not the only one reporting it, apparently. That's good, though.
Okay. I also remember you said that you wanted to have the cruelty be brought to light. Who exactly do you want to bring that to light to? Like, more specifically, can you describe your ideal reader or your target audience?
Oh, I think as far as a reader, it'd be any man or woman who's an adult, anywhere from 18 on.
Okay, so you're looking to reach adult readers.
Yeah, I think so. However, when the book was put in a local library in a high school here, I was informed it was the most checked out book in the library. So perhaps I need to make it go down a few years, say from 15 on or something.
That may actually be a very good idea because it would open up your audience, of course, but it would also allow you to reach younger readers and be able to make an impact sooner.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, that's fine. Yeah, so we can say from 15 on, okay?
Okay.
Or teenagers.
Yeah, older teenagers to adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of brings me to my next question. What kind of impact do you want this book to have on your readers?
Mainly to inform them of what's in the world that they probably don't know about. Now, today, everybody says, there's no such a thing as an orphanage today, which is a joke. The thing is, they've changed the name. They don't call them orphanages. They call them group homes.
Right.
Yeah. So, and some of them have up to 200 kids in them. Some of them are very small, 6 or 8, but also some are very large. So anyway, it still goes on.
So,
And I'm sure there are a lot of wonderful small group homes.
do you think that the size of the orphanage makes a difference in the way that you're treated?
I don't know. I would say most likely because I don't think that, well, the small group homes, number one, they've got, whether it's 2 or 3 kids, maybe 6, but I don't think they've probably taken more than they can handle. Whereas in the big facilities like that, the kids are brought and dumped, and that's just, they just pile up in there. So I'm sure it's harder on the people running it also, but I just mainly wanted the church people to know, you guys know this isn't right,
Yeah.
Somebody do something.
And like I said earlier, I'm glad you're bringing this kind of stuff to light because it takes a lot of courage.
Well, it doesn't feel like courage because I was so anxious to get out of there that it was like, I got to get out of there and I got to let people know,
Right. A lot of people would be scared to tell about what happened because they'd be scared about any repercussions they might experience.
Well, I figured once I was out of there, I could escape them, if they came after me.
Yeah, you were like, once I'm out of here, y'all can deal with it yourself.
Yeah, that's it. That's the emphasis of the whole thing.
I'm glad you made it out. I really am.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I came out alive. I will tell you another thing that I saw there that is in the book, and it was in a Bible class. We had Bible. We had church 3 times a week. We had chapel 7 days a week, and we had Bible study every Monday night. So anyway, it was on a Monday night Bible study, and one of the girls, she's about 13, and I was too, she was talking while the teacher, who was a man, he was a football coach, was teaching the class. And so he said, "Don't talk in my class." Well, anyway, she was whispering to her neighbor, and he yelled at her, and she stopped, and then she did it again, and he exploded and said, "Get down here, I want to," because we were sitting in the gym, which was his natural home, and on bleachers, and so she went down to him, and he hit her so hard they didn't use boards like little ping pong paddles or something. I mean, they used boards that were like 1/2 inch thick with holes drilled in them, and when they hit you hard, the holes would make us sore. Make it skin pop. And so he beat her so bad that she was literally unconscious, and he kept beating her after she was unconscious. And the teenage boys were getting out of their Bible study class when they heard all of us squealing and screaming. And they came in the gym to see what was happening, and he's flailing around as this paddle still beating on her, and she's unconscious. And the boys went over and grabbed him and made him stop and took the paddle. And he'd just lost it, going crazy. And we had to drag her home, and she couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks. She almost died in the beginning, and she got better. But I'm not saying that was an everyday thing, but I'm saying something on that order happened so frequently, it was a terrifying place to live.
Yeah, and I can imagine just that happening one time would be enough to traumatize someone.
Yeah, it would. So anyway, that's the main reason for writing it. So I never doubted that I would write it. And it has not been changed since I wrote it.
Okay.
So yeah.
How did writing this book make you feel? Like, what kind of emotions did it evoke?
Well, while I was writing it, of course, sometimes I would just be bawling while I'm writing it, crying. Of course, I didn't do it on a computer because it was a long time ago. I wrote it on a typewriter, and I can remember having to stop and wipe my face and that sort of thing. Reliving it was painful, but I also knew I had to do it. I had to tell them. So,
what was the hardest part of developing this story? Were there any moments where you wanted to quit?
No. Nope, wanted to tell it all, every bit of it, and did. No, I didn't want to quit.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that you were persistent about that till the end.
Yeah, well, like I said, I felt like somebody had to do it, and I didn't know if anybody else was, so I did it.
So you mentioned that the book, when you were writing it, you would be sobbing. How did you deal with that emotional impact as you were writing the story?
Well, I knew it was going to be a sad story, a part of it. It was going to be very sad. But so I didn't have to deal with the emotional impact. I'd already learned how to do that. And I learned to do that, how to control myself, when I was learning to read, which I was 13 before I started learning to read. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to back up. I saw my mother burned to death when I was around 6. That, at that time of my life, I guess, is the reason I just couldn't learn. And so when I went to school, I didn't know what those letters were and those markings. I knew I loved to draw them, but didn't know they didn't make any sense to me if you put them on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And so I lied and cheated my way from first grade up until 8th grade. But I did learn early that if I would listen carefully, I could answer questions in class. And so I kept getting passed to the next grade, even though I couldn't spell anything. And so I was cheating on a spelling test. And by the way, I want to brag about one thing. I was a good cheater. I mean, I was clever. I wrote the words between my fingers and my shirt cuffs and places like that because I knew I just didn't understand. I don't know how other people know how to read. I kept asking myself. Well, anyway, I was finally, a test was given, last test of the 7th grade, because I was going into 8th grade. The last test of that year, so I didn't care if I got caught cheating. So I just put one page over another, and one was written in ink so I could see through it and copy, because I didn't care if I got caught. It's the last test. The teacher happened to call a word that began with CH. And I could have told you it's CH, but it didn't mean anything to me. I knew the name of the letter. But anyway, the next letter, the thing she called was a CH beginning. And I thought, and I checked that one. And then I thought, if I got those 2 right, and she called the 3rd one with the same beginning. And I thought, this has to be it. This 3rd one was CH. That's it. That's the key. That's what everybody knows that I didn't know. Letters have sound assignments. I was so excited. Santa Claus and Good Fairy and everybody could have appeared at once, and they wouldn't have made it. They couldn't have brought my spirits higher. I was so thrilled, I counted the letters in my name. Because I thought, well, I know how they sound. If I can take those letters and these new letters, CH, I got half the alphabet in my name. And so I decided at that point to teach myself to read. That meant I had to hide, and because I'd never admitted I couldn't read. But I'd never written a book report. I copied every one of them from somebody. I would say, because we had to wash our underwear and our socks every night, that sort of thing. And I'd say, I'll wash your underwear and your socks if you let me copy your homework, or if you'll read to me the assignment. So all of a sudden, I was so excited, and I swiped a flashlight from the kitchen. I had to work kitchen every day and every night. And I swiped a flashlight, and I decided to check out a book. I'd never checked out a book in the library, and I went to the librarian and said, I want to check out a book. She said, what book? I said, I don't know, you pick. She said, what age group? And I said, I was embarrassed, but I said, first grade. So she brought me a story and told me, here's one. It's called The Mystery of the Little Green Turtle. And so I took it home, back to the orphanage, because we were going to a public school at that point. And I took that flashlight, got under my covers at night to read, because I had a roommate. I didn't want her to tell anybody that I couldn't read. And she didn't know it, because I'd been lying to her, too. So anyway, I struggled, and I got the basic, using the letters in my name as the keys. And I deciphered the book enough to know, to answer one of my own questions, because I used to ask myself, why do people want to read anyway? Why don't they just talk? And all of a sudden I knew why they read. They wanted to find the little green turtle. So I was so excited that I got through that little book. The next day I went back and said, I want to check out another book. And the librarian said, which book? We went through the same routine. I don't know what age group. I said, high school. So she hands me Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which was the #1 bestseller then. And when I got that, and got home under the covers and the whole bit, sounding out the first few pages, and I had no idea what kind of book it was before I started. And I got so frightened, so terrified while I'm reading that I put the book down, and I asked myself, why am I scared? Why am I scared? What scared me? I feel like I felt like there was a horrible, bad person under my bed going to kill me or something. And then it hit me. It was the words in the book. The words in the book going through my mind scared me. And I thought, wow, if words in a book can scare me, I can use my own words. I can tell myself things that'll make me feel strong, make me feel proud, make me feel glad, And that's exactly what I started doing right that moment. So that's how I learned to control my own emotions and keep myself up so that I could do the things that I love doing. And I ended up teaching creative writing at UCI, I became a hypnotherapist for 25 years and eventually became an ordained minister. So it's like, I know it works. I was able to get past all those gruesome things by watching what I say to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's really crazy that you went from not knowing how to read, teaching yourself how to read, to teaching others.
Yeah, and to being a writer myself, yeah.
I can only imagine how powerful that must have felt.
Oh, it was, well, like I said, even in the book, I knew at that point that was the greatest thing I could discover, period. In fact, the way I said it in the book, I think even God didn't matter as much as what I just learned. To me, that's how excited I was to know I can get through this life now.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, so it was very, very powerful for me. And I'm still teaching people to do it. I bet not one person in a million knows that their words and their thoughts affect their emotions. Absolutely. In other words, you can't separate emotion and thought. And I bet they don't know it.
A lot of
Otherwise,
people know that, actually.
Yeah, I know so they make themselves miserable and sick.
I just have a couple more questions before we wrap this up.
Okay.
Are there any parts to this book that you connect to on a deeper level?
What do you mean deeper?
Like, I think that you actually already answered that, and when you said even God didn't matter as much as what you just learned, that sentence
that's
right
the way
there.
I felt at the time. That's the way I felt at the time, yes. I'm a constant counselor on that subject to help people. Because like I said, most people have no idea they're creating their own fear, they're creating their own anger, or whatever feeling they're experiencing. And it seems to me, since I know it's absolutely true, I need to help them, and so I try.
If you could go back and give yourself any advice while you were writing the book, what would you say?
I would say be willing to wait 57 years before it's recognized.
You know what? Sometimes that's all you need is time.
Well, we passed that time, okay? Because I was 24 at the time. And I'm way past that now. I'm 81.
Wow. At least you're getting the recognition you need.
I feel very good about that. I know the book has helped many people since it was published in 2006, was when it was actually published. And I've gotten a lot of letters and things, so I'm glad. Plus, I do want to say one more thing about the book, and that is, if you've been through, anybody who's listening, has been through any kind of trauma, grief, and childhood stuff like that, it doesn't even have to be childhood stuff. There is a section that I put in the back, and this was after I became a hypnotherapist, that I put in the back to help other people who have gone through situations that they have trouble getting untangled from, okay?
Okay.
So some people don't like it. In other words, they don't want to leave the story, forget the story, and at the end of the story, to get to, now do you want to improve yourself? I know some don't like it. Most people do. I get a lot of letters on it. So.
This isn't one of the interview questions, but I'm still curious. Do you answer your readers' letters?
Yes, when I get them. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Actually, you already answered this question. I was going to ask if there was anything else you wanted to mention or brush upon.
No, I think that the book pretty well covers what I wanted people to know. And, yeah. And I appreciate you're putting it out there for me, too.
Thank you for giving the opportunity to display your book. I always get excited to help people present their book to the global market because you never know whose hearts you're touching. That's
right. That's right. So I appreciate it, too, and I thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
I bet.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
Two more, actually. Have you ever worked with Authors Press before?
No. Mm-hmm.
No? How has this interaction been for you so far?
It's been everything from great to confusing, but it's been far better. I've had so many people contacting me, but Authors Press has been very good. Thank you.
Okay. Authors Press is always looking for feedback, so if you'd like to tell us if you have ideas on how we could make it less confusing, we're always willing to hear.
I just have one note on that, okay?
Okay.
And when you're dealing with old people, tell them to talk slower, not louder.
Okay. That actually is very good advice. Thank you. I'll let the team know.
Yeah, most people, when you say, wait, I didn't hear that, they would make it louder, and sometimes aggravate them, and they scream at you. But all we really mean, I don't hear you. Slow down, leave a little space between your words, okay?
Okay.
Okay. But you, I've been able to understand.
Okay.
But some of that I've talked. You bet. Thank you.
Sometimes I do talk a little bit too fast, and I do apologize for that.
Well, the apology accepted. I wasn't talking specifically about you.
Yeah.
Some of the calls that I get.
So excited.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much for the time.
You're very welcome. That's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for meeting with me and discussing your book.
You bet. Thank you.
If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to Authors Press either via our phone number or our email. But other than that, that's all I've got for you.
May I tell them the name of the book again?
I was going to read it, but you absolutely can too.
Yes, the book that you'll be looking for is called Cry into the Wind. And there's a picture of a family on the front. And I'm the little girl on the far right corner. And thank you for reading it.
This has been Othello Bach, the author of Cry into the Wind, A True Story, and Nicole Richardson from Authors Press. Thanks so much for tuning in.